Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined this week by Dave and producer JL. As we head into the week before Thanksgiving, it is going to be a little bit of a mailbag edition of the podcast this week, as the Rangers are out on the West Coast in the midst of a 4-game swing. They're already 2-0, having beaten the Seattle Kraken on Sunday and the Vancouver Canucks on Tuesday. We are recording this on Wednesday, so maybe if you're listening on Thursday, you're getting ready for the Flames on Thursday, and then the trip will be capped by, kind of the headliner game versus the Edmonton Oilers, who off to a bit of an uneven start, have dealt with some injuries, but Rangers Oilers is potentially a Stanley Cup final preview. Dave, JL, how are we doing this week? JL, I want to start with you, since you kind of called into last week's show, but we didn't really hear much from you otherwise.
Things are going great. Rangers are playing well. Mets are looking primed to do big things in free agency, and I haven't totally lost my mind with everything else. So I'd consider that a win, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Sure. Those words are coming out of your mouth, but you're not like selling it. Right? It sounds like you're defeated, but you're saying the words and putting on a happy face.
Jeez, Dave, don't give up the secret. Come on, man. We have to put a veil over something at some point.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were still mourning the retirement of Pamela Hayden from The Simpsons.
Oh, well, I still have to process that. So, thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. I'm good. I'm good. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to our fellow contributor, Russell Hartman. He got married this past weekend.
Congrats.
It was a wonderful ceremony. It was a great time. I'm so happy you invited me. Everything was awesome. So congratulations to Russ and Mrs. Hartman. It was great. So yeah, things are going well.
That's great. Awesome. That's always good to hear some happy news. Congratulations to Russ. So yeah, guys, let's just do a quick sort of like 10-minute, maybe not even 5-minute summation of where things stand. The Rangers, like I said, off to a 2-0 start on the trip. And again, we're looking at, as we talked about last week, we were talking a lot about the Rangers' resiliency, and it looks like they have righted the ship, and that was driven by the return of the sane line combinations. And I think just improved play from, kind of Mika Zibanejad in particular against Vancouver, continued contributions from the third line. I mean, it's wild to look up at the stat, just the counting stats, and see Will Cooley having 14 points in 17 games. So that third line is really humming, even in Filipino's absence. And to really give the vibes a good push in the right direction, we got great news on Filipino a few days ago here, that he did not suffer a concussion, will rejoin the team. So, Dave, real quick, how is your confidence in the state of affairs given the good start to the trip and the Hedl news?
The Hedl news is the big one. That moves me. I do, we run the fan confidence poll every Monday. I had been a steady 9, even with the Rangers having a little bit of a blip. I figured they'll get it right. They'll figure it out. Then the Hedl injury made me rethink that briefly. I'm still at a 9. I still think this team comes out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I would say also, Dave, that I wasn't quite at a 9, but I was already having thoughts when that injury occurred of like, okay, they're probably going to need to do something now and do it quick. And I don't think we can plan on watching or seeing Filipino play any more hockey, right? It just didn't seem like it was a good idea, that it was probable, that it was possible, because that looked an awful lot like the previous kind of head injuries he suffered before. And you're talking about now quite a large handful of head injuries and suspected concussions that he, would have suffered. And you just get into that territory of, I think Larry Brooks mentioned Pat LaFontaine, Eric Lindros, just guys who had to retire early because of head injuries. Thankfully, that's not the case. I will say this: he does need to do a little bit better of a job protecting himself on the ice. I mean, that was an incidental collision with Keandre Miller. Yeah, a little bit of a miscommunication, but also, a pro hockey player's got to learn to brace himself for that and not kind of have his head down, not be able to kind of have that whiplash thing happen where you're taking unsuspected contact. You have to be in a posture of protecting yourself almost the entire time you're on the ice. It's why coaches tell you, after a pass, don't pull up and admire the pass. Keep going, stay in a ready position, because someone might finish their check, even if it's illegal. Hopefully the penalty's called, but you need to protect yourself. So Heedle's got to work on that, and he should know by now. He's a seventh-year pro. He should not be putting himself in vulnerable positions. That's
7 years.
Yeah, I think this is his 7th season, right?
Yeah, this is his 7th. He started at 18 years old.
Yeah,
he's been in. Wow.
Oh, he's
Goodness
a veteran.
gracious!
So and he's a great player, and the Rangers need him. So yeah,
Yes.
JL, any quick thoughts from you before we dive into our blue sky mostly mailbag?
I was very pleasantly surprised to see Mika Zibanejad essentially probably play one of his better games of the season, and you hope that can be a play driver. That line looked really good against Vancouver. The Vancouver was really playing them tough, and that line was really able to respond. Also, really happy with Will Cooley, and obviously Capo Caco looking really great as well. The whole team is clicking. I love that they went back to the other pairs. And line combinations. I mean, really, it's just a good time for Rangers hockey right now. And as a famous philosopher once said, everything's coming up Millhouse.
There you go. We're coming for those who have no idea what that means. Coming full circle.
Even I know that.
Hayden.
That's Simpsons, yeah.
Well, no, Pamela Hayden, who retired from The Simpsons, she voiced Millhouse.
Yeah. Got it. There you
That's
go.
why.
It is all coming up Millhouse. And look, I went into this 4-game trip thinking get a split, right? 2-2. But you look up, the Rangers are 7-1 on the road. They are all of the numbers look good when they play on the road. Both goaltenders are in good form. And there's a chance they could sweep this Western trip. They had a similar trip last year that I think they went 4-0, or there might have been an extra game on that trip. Might have actually been a 5-game trip that they swept. So, and that really catapulted them through the first half of the season. Last year, maybe a similar thing happens, but even still, a split of these last 2 games would be totally fine. And the Rangers can continue the momentum in what is a pretty competitive Eastern Conference. All right, so let's get to these questions. Start with one of our Blue Seat Blogs colleagues, Tyler. He goes by Tyler Richard 93 on Blue Sky. This is off the back of something we spitballed last week and kind of has been in the ether, especially with the mess that is the Boston Bruins, which is a joy to see for most hockey fans that are not fans of the Bruins, of course. Brad Marchand to NYR when? Dave or JL, any thoughts on that as a possibility at some point, remote as it may seem?
0% chance of that happening. Sorry, I know we
don't be a wet blanket, David.
He threw me a bone last week talking about that, Dave.
0, and let me explain why. First, it would take a pretty significant injury for the Rangers to go after Marchand. Is it Marchand or Marchand?
I don't know.
Marchand.
I've heard both.
You can say Marchand.
Yeah. Okay, because the whole Gallant thing is still fresh in my mind. Because obviously Rob brought it up last week. 0% chance. They're not going to mess with the lines. And then let's talk about cost, because Rob, I think last week I missed on the price. I think the price is similar to the Rick Nash trade to Boston.
Right, yes.
So that was 2 solid that was Lindgren, that was a first, and then bodies to make the cap work out, right? Spooner was 1, Bolesky was 1, and that was just bodies to make the cap work. But it was mostly Lindgren and the first round pick. So what is the Rangers equivalent to that? Obviously the first round pick, and then pick one of your favorite forward prospects. I don't think the Rangers do that. Plus, there's no space at wing right now. They need a center.
It's interesting. I'm trying to think because you're logically speaking, David, you're absolutely right. Um, you're how can I put it? It's definitely something I want to see, even though I find Brad Marchand to be absolutely ridiculous in terms of him being on the ice. But at the same time, you know, I feel as if they needed a bit of a boost. Obviously, the main thing would just primarily be trying to get a defenseman. Honestly, I think that's kind of the key. Get a defenseman, and you kind of just go from there. But uh, if they were in the position to try and trade for a Brad Marchand, I would welcome it, considering that it's the, you know, it's the it's you know it's an expiring contract if I'm correct.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, everybody's begging for that big move. Everybody wants, oh, well, the Rangers need to make that huge, big move, that to propel them over into the playoffs or to propel them into the Stanley Cup final. And I'm saying, well, if the line, like you said, if the lines are going to be together and they're playing well, why are you going to mess up a good thing? It's probably more likely they need reinforcement on defense. But the irrational part of me says, yeah, absolutely, go for it. Now I'm trying to pull up the trade, the Bruins trade, because I want to compare the two, because I feel as if
while you're pulling that up, let me just add one thing to that, which
okay,
is we learned what it takes to make a trade like this when you don't have cap space. The
right?
Patrick Kane thing is still fresh in my mind.
Oh, geez, I know.
Let's say Marchand for some reason pulls a Kane. I'm only going to the Rangers. He's not going to pull that. Let's be real. But let's just say hypothetically, the Rangers are in. Marchand wants to go, and the Bruins do what they can to make it work. At 50%, Marchand's contract is a shade over $3 million. So they're going to have to find ways to accrue enough cap space to get $3 million to land Marchand. And if injuries happen during that accrual process, especially late in the season, we're looking at a momentum stopping 16, 17 skaters dressed period of time. And that completely derailed that season 2 years ago.
That is
when they
right. That's
lost to the
correct.
Devils in the first round.
Yes, it did.
They didn't need Kane. They needed a center.
Yeah. I think they would have been fine with just Tarasenko, and we talked about that. I can honestly say that we actually had that conversation at that time, because it wasn't that far off. But I'm looking at the trade here, and he was traded to the Bruins for, like you said, Ryan Spooner, Matt Bolesky, Ryan Lindgren, and a 2018 first round pick and a 2019 seventh round pick. So if
not second.
Seventh, yeah, that's right. Did I say I said seventh, right?
Seventh, just my brain doesn't function anymore. So.
I'm sorry. It's my obvious Jersey accent, Dave. I'm sorry. I don't speak Long Island. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't speak Long Island. Okay.
Yeah. Continue. Get your point across. All right. Let's go.
So, anyways, like you said, it'd have to be something similar. But I think Capo Caco and probably Brennan Othman would have to be in a deal like that, something similar, or maybe you have to trade. Maybe, I don't want to say Philip Hedl, but maybe something similar. And I don't think the Rangers are going to do that. Pipe dream, JL? Yes. Let's get Brad Marchand here. NHL 24. We're going to get him here. Video game stuff. But obviously, that's not how the world works.
I don't think Kako and Othman or Hedl would have to go. I think, let me pull up.
Well, at least one of the two.
No, I don't think so. The Rangers didn't give. The only reason why the Rangers got Spooner and Bolesky, I believe, was cap purposes. Bolesky in particular was a cap thing. Spooner may have been just collateral debt. I think they were actually looking to trade Spooner, if I remember correctly. And
he was also a point per game player for the Rangers for his first 15 games when he came over, which was hysterical.
Yeah,
his stat line was hilarious because I remember he had 1 goal and 15 assists.
Yeah, that's right.
He had this wild like streak of like just he had an assist every game. Obviously, on a bad team, that happens. Look, this was more of a vibe shifter move than like something that would actually make sense in the real world. Also, I don't know if Marchand has ever played right wing. Obviously, that would be the spot that you'd look to potentially fill. But look, I mean, this also, this came on the heels of a slump that the Rangers were having. Again, it was kind of a vibe shift move, and Kakko's actually looked really good. That's the other component here that like it's a player that again, I don't know how long you want to commit to him and what you think his ceiling is, but that third line is not something you can mess with right now.
You can't mess with 3 of the 4 lines right now. There's only one line you can mess with, and it's the Kreider, Zibanejad, Smith line.
And even then,
every
they're
other
looking
line
pretty
is
good.
crushing it.
Yeah.
And lately, yes, that line has been good. Shocker. They look good as soon as the defense pairs got put back together.
All
Sorry,
right.
I'm still bitter that he broke that up. But he learned.
He did.
And now look at us. All right.
Well,
I think that ends the Marchand one, right?
Well, just a quick comment just to end. That's the thing about Laviolette that I like that a lot of other Ranger coaches haven't really done is that they're keenly aware of things that go on. And from then on, it's just nice. It's refreshing to see someone actually use their brain.
Yes, it is. So, Rob, you're officially back. Your technical difficulties have been ironed out.
Well, I guess you can go to the next question while
I'll read the next question. So, Rob's laptop is about the same age as the last time the Rangers won the Cup. So he's having some issues. So I'm just going to read off the next questions. Next one from Michael Silvers. Mike, again, thanks for all the support with the Patreon. I really appreciate it. He asks, I can't talk today. All's been quiet on the Igor front, save for Stan Fischler. What's your gut telling you? I added that piece. What are our guts telling us? Does this get done during the season or, God forbid, after?
If I remember correctly, the Lundqvist extension in, was it 13? Or is it 13 or 14? The Lundqvist extension got done, I think, the first week of December, if I'm correct.
It was February, and that was because Lundqvist took a discount on a 1-year contract because the Rangers couldn't make the money work for that season. So a little bit different.
Oh, was that why? I feel like I remember if I remember correctly, I feel like he signed, and again, my brain is also mush, so I apologize if I'm getting this wrong. I just remember something happening before a game against the Devils. I think that might have been it, and then he obviously signed the extension. But my personal opinion, I think it happens either within the first week of December, or it might actually happen after the season because the only time, I mean, there have been other instances where the Rangers have made moves in the middle of the season. Obviously, last season they signed Quick to the 1-year extension in March. So I would assume if they're going to go for any sort of timeline, that could possibly also be it as well. Maybe for some cap reasons, I don't know. But I genuinely think that it's going to get done during the season, and it's going to be the number that Kevin Weeks had tweeted out, cryptically, of course. I just don't see the way that the Rangers kind of jumped on it almost automatically when the news started coming around after like the numbers started getting exchanged, whether it was like the largest number for a goaltender ever, whether it was 12 or 14. I'm exaggerating with that, but it just kind of seemed like they worked quickly. And obviously with the Rangers playing well and Igor just stealing the show, I mean, the Rangers really didn't have much of an option. And here's the thing. We have this conversation a lot in the chat. And that's basically saying, how are the Rangers going to survive, without Igor? The team is currently constructed, while they are very good, they are not built to have a goaltender like a Stuart Skinner or like an Aiden Hill or even like a Logan Thompson. This team needs an elite guy in net. And I think that the Rangers know this. And with the cap potentially going up to 95 million, as there was a report within the next couple of years from the other day, you can essentially fit a guy like that into your cap if it really goes up. Now, barring any sort of natural disasters that stop the NHL from making money like COVID did, I really think that this would probably end up being a cost-effective move down the line for the team and for Igor. So that's why I think the Rangers really jumped on it. And with the Rangers cap situation essentially clearing up within the next 2 years, I think it'll be perfect to not only lock him up, but also have a lot of money for the team to kind of recoup as well. So I think this happens in the middle of the season, but if not, it's more than likely going to happen in the summer. But my guess is in the middle of the season.
Yep, there are enough breaks in the season. You know, we'll have the Four Nations tournament. We'll have the Rangers bye week. There's going to be enough time where there's no news, and no hockey being played for the Rangers, and that's probably when we're going to get that announcement. The Lundqvist thing is not really applicable here because Shesterkin didn't take a discount on a 1-year contract, and the way the CBA was written then. You
Right.
took
I
a
actually
1-year
forgot
contract,
about that.
you did the extension, and then, so it was after January 1st, you could sign your extension, and that's what Lundqvist did. So they had that basically set, and I think they officially signed it in February.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I totally forgot that they had signed him to that 1-year deal. I thought the way my memory recalls it, and this clearly just shows how good my memory is. He essentially, I thought he just signed it because I remember there was this sort of like conversation about when he signed it, and it might be February because usually a lot of Ranger Devil games happen around that time of the year. He signed this contract, and then he like looked terrible in one of those games, and I just remember a couple fans just kind of like, you know, just kind of getting on his case a little bit, and then he turned out to be elite as he always was. So that's why I put that together. But then obviously I'm clearly wrong, so shows how well my brain is. So yeah.
All right,
Perfect.
so Rob is probably not coming back. On top of his laptop dying, one of his kids woke up. So yeah, rough night for Rob. So it'll just
we'll
be
take
me
it
and
from here.
JL then. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it from here. You know?
All right. I will read off the next one. This is from old friend of the blog and old host of the pod, Pat. TRBLBO Trouble Boy, I guess TRBLBOI on Blue Sky.
Oh, I didn't know that was his name. Oh, well, sorry, I didn't know your name. I just knew your handle. I should know because I've met him in person. Sorry
he's
about
a good guy.
that.
Yeah,
No,
Pat's
he's
a
a
good
good
dude.
guy. Yeah.
So should I stay awake for West Coast hockey this week? Not entirely joking. I am not staying awake. I am usually asleep before puck drop. You guys, anybody you want to yell at me, go for it. I don't care. I got 2 kids under 4 years old. I need sleep. One of them wakes up routinely, throughout the night. So as much sleep as I can get, I get. So no one's going to judge you if you don't watch the games.
Yeah, no one's gonna judge you. I won't judge you. I'm a childless heathen, even though I want kids. I'm a childless heathen who has nothing else better to do with his evenings than watch Rangers hockey late at night. But I mean, if you could do it, I mean, they're playing well enough. So I mean, and you want to do it, go ahead. I think it's worth it because I don't know. For some reason, for me, and this applies to even baseball, there's kind of this like coziness to watching a game late at night. Now, obviously, I don't know everybody's situation. So if you have to get up for work early and not sleeping affects you, then don't do it. But if you want to watch good hockey and you don't mind staying up till about 1 a.m., then go for it. Why not? It's hockey. I find it to be fun because it's sort of like, and this is going to sound very juvenile, so buckle up. Um, so there's kind of this like cozy feeling that I used to get as a kid when I'd watch late night sports, but it's like you're so used to watching it at like 7 o'clock or like 1 o'clock. Everybody's awake. everybody's active. You hear people in the house moving, whatever, this, that, and the fourth. But with this, it's kind of like you're watching it in like your own little fort where there's nobody around. It's quiet. You're just watching the game, and then you go to sleep. Like because the feeling I get is like when you make like a tent or like a fort with like the coziness you get when you make like a fort out of blankets and like pillows. And don't ask me why I'm comparing it to that, but that's just how I
I'm trying
feel.
to figure out where you're going with this. I'm letting it go.
So all right, so
Run with it.
when you've built like a fort out of like blankets and like pillows, right? I'm assuming you've had a childhood to a degree where you've done that, right? Or anyone.
Despite what people think about bloggers, yes, we are human beings, and yes, I have built a fort in my life.
Right. So that coziness that you felt where it's like that's your space, right? That's like your
Yeah.
own space. Well, that's how I feel when I watch late night hockey because you're in your space. Most people, whether you're in your own house or just outside, everybody's sleeping. There's not much commotion going on. So you kind of feel this sort of intimate sort of feeling to it. Now, granted, the downside is that you stay up till 1 in the morning. And if you have to get up at 5, 6, or 7 or 8, then, you're kind of SOL. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, this is cool. Sucks when they lose because there've been some big stinkers. But that's the good part, too, is that if there's a stinker, you can just go to sleep. It's not like, oh, if there's a stinker at 7 o'clock, you still have a couple hours left to go unless you just want to fall asleep at 8 o'clock at night, which I know some
There is
people
nothing
do,
wrong with falling
which is
asleep.
nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. I'm just saying, I'm speaking relatively on a regular 9 to 5 schedule. I can't speak to anything else other than that. But if you're working a regular I just have to preface this because I don't want anyone to yell at me. So
They're gonna yell at you anyway. Just say it.
yeah, I know. But yeah, so if you want to watch it, that's how I feel. And if you want to feel the same way as me, by all means, you can take it and take credit for it if you want. But yeah, I think it's worth it. Rangers hockey is fun, but I have no life, so.
I mean, no. If I had the ability to stay awake that late, and I used to, when I first started doing the goal breakdowns, this was the 13, 14. No, it was long before that, actually. I think I started doing those goal breakdowns like the 2012 season. But the 2013, 2014 season, when I was up watching those games, and I was up writing those goal breakdowns when Hurdle deked Marty Biron into retirement, and I was sitting there watching some of the worst defensive hockey I've ever seen. I missed that. I think what was it? The Rangers lost 9-2 and 6-0
It
in
was.
back-to-back games, and I stayed up for all of it. I
Yep.
like it was tough to watch, but I was watching hockey. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have other priorities. I love the Rangers. Sorry, but I love my girls more, and I want to be able to be awake and with them. That's
Right.
it.
Well, there you go.
That's a priority thing.
Yeah. So yeah, all depends on your situation. I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's true. So.
All right, on to the next from our friend Hope, newest writer to the team. Dream of Hope on Blue Sky. We know Miller Fox and Jones Schneider work, but we know that for the most part, Lindgren Truba doesn't. Do they keep these pairings to lessen the overall burden, or should they go back to Schneider Truba, which also worked, and Lindgren Jones to see if that's got better balance? That's a good question.
That is a good question because I'm actually really trying to ponder on that because you can do either combination and they'll be fine. The only issue is that the lone wild card here is obviously Ryan Lindgren, and who had Jacob Trouba playing better than Ryan Lindgren on their bingo card this year. You know what I mean?
I did.
Oh well,
I can't
thanks,
have been
Dave.
the only one seeing this coming. Lindgren has been in a spiral for a couple of years, and Truba is mostly fine until one of his ankles falls off.
Yeah, or his wrist, or his
Or
shoulder,
his wrist,
or his knee.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Like Truba just gets hurt and plays through it, which is bad, and he hurts the team when he does it. But Lindgren's been bad for a while, and he's been playing with Adam Fox.
yeah.
So
Well, I'll say this. As much as I like the switch, I think what they are currently should be what they stick with, just for just for continuity purposes. I like the idea of switching the D pairs like that, and if that's the case, then by all means, because I really did like um, Jones and Schneider, but the only problem is that um, it was Jones Schneider, and then it would be no, I'm sorry, I messed
No,
up. It was
yeah. It's
because Jones Schneider is
Schneider
what it is.
Truba.
Schneider
Schneider
Truba.
Truber,
So my
Lindgren
issue,
Jones.
my only issue with that Schneider Truba would be fine. Lindgren Jones, I'm a little weary about because again, Lindgren is the wild card here. And not that Zach Jones can't hold his own, but I feel like if he has to bail out Lindgren a lot more, I feel like that would be much of a detriment. It would be too much of a detriment. So not so yeah, on the flip side, you'll say, oh well, both those guys are just an absolute disaster. But at the same time, you just kind of limit their minutes, which everybody wants to do to Jacob Trouba anyways. And then obviously you do it to Ryan Lindgren, so you throw out those pairs, less or less frequent. So it's definitely a tricky situation for now. I would just keep them the same because they're still winning despite those two. But if they have to kind of shake things up, I think that would be a really good option to do, to kind of balance them out a little bit. So she does make a really good point. That's a really good question.
It is a great question. I think they need to at least try Schneider, Truba, Lindgren, Jones, just to see if that will work. Because if not, we know the answer that needs to happen, and it'll go back to Schneider, Jones, and Truba will play with whomever Lindgren gets traded for.
Well, more than likely, it would probably either be Chad Ruedel or somebody they end up trading for. Obviously, Brian Dumoulin is a name that
Dumoulin.
comes to mind, which I
Hope is
think
the
would
one
be
that
pretty
keeps
good.
bringing him up, and I'm good with that because
Yeah, me
Dumoulin's skill
too.
set works well with Truba. We've been
Right.
saying for a while Truba needed to play with somebody who's a stay-at-home defenseman, and we had been pushing Lindgren Truba for like 4 years, and we're 4 years that we finally get it, and we're 4 years too late.
4 years too late, right? Yeah, because that would have
So
definitely helped somewhat last season, but
it would have helped, but we didn't get it. Now Lindgren is either playing hurt again, which is a problem on a fail on many levels, or he's just turning into Dan Girardi and Mark Stahl. We've seen this happen before. He's going to become the villain if he continues to play like this.
right.
And you got to either see what works, try him with Jones, see if that works. If not, ship him off, figure it out.
Yep, I agree.
That's it.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
All right. On to the next. Friend Will Wright at W Wright 88 on Blue Sky, another of our fantastic writers here. With so much focus on the Rangers' flaws early in the season, what has been your favorite story of the first 20 games so far? Roughly 20 games so far.
Ooh, you could take that one first.
All right. So I think the easy answer is Heedle, assuming he comes back and healthy and continues to dominate. But I want to go Zach Jones. This kid should have played last year.
Mm-hmm.
Gustafson was fine. This is not a knock on Gustafson. He was fine in his role. He was fine when he played well beyond his role. He was exactly what the Rangers needed and was one of the best bargains in hockey last year. But Jones should have been playing last year. And for him to sit in the press box all year, sit in the press box in the playoffs, despite the Rangers playing at least 3 defensemen who are hurt, the professionalism is astounding because if that were me, I would have requested a trade. So Zach Jones has earned every second of his playing time, and I hope he gets more. And he's playing very well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he is probably a revelation in the sense that, and I think you mentioned this in one of the chats or somebody did, whether it was Luker on Blue Sky, or I forget where I saw this or where I read it, but essentially what the Rangers were lacking in terms of a puck moving defenseman on the back end outside of Adam Fox is essentially what they're getting right now with Zach Jones. Obviously, we know Adam Fox was essentially compromised with his knee after he got hit by Nicholas Jensen in the first round. So you didn't really get that much from him, even though he did his best to try and do so. But there wasn't really anyone else to really move the puck out of the defensive zone. They were just very static. So I definitely can agree with you on that. But my choice for favorite storyline is Jonathan Quick, and I just posed, and I just wrote an article about that, about Jonathan Quick and his impact on the team so far, and I feel as if his impact has been felt on the ice and off the ice, and doing the research on the article, and then also just like looking at the way that he's played and the impact that he had on his team. Obviously, last season you had a couple of veteran guys who were able to stabilize the room, Blake Wheeler, Eric Gustafson and Jonathan Quick. But then, Quick was the guy that was really being the rah guy to kind of get guys going in the locker room. And I feel like that really did propel them to the level that they were able to get. Obviously, they ran out of gas after a certain point. But then you see it this year. So now, obviously, with Philip Hedl coming in and being healthy on the third line, this team, and with Zach Jones on the back end, and then Riley Smith, which ups their 5-on-5 numbers, this team is better. It may not be massively better, but in many more ways than one, this team is a lot better than they were last season. And with Jonathan Quick playing exceptionally well, and at the time of this recording has not given up a goal yet in a couple of games, you need that from your backup, because you want to save Igor for the playoffs like you did last year. So you have to have somebody who can get you through the doldrums of these long West Coast trips, for those long trips out in the Midwest, and on all the other trips against your Metropolitan Division rivals and your Atlantic Division rivals. You need somebody to hold the fort, and Jonathan Quick has been nothing short of amazing. Obviously with the Igor situation really being up in the air, obviously he's more than likely going to stay, but it's still a question mark at this point until the dotted line has been signed with ink. So you see that Quick has played exceptionally well to keep this team's momentum going. And then it kind of puts things into perspective on what you want to do with him, whether it's this season or next season. He's played so well that you actually have to consider possibly bringing him back on another contract for one more year. Not to say that you're going to keep him and sign him to a long-term extension, but with Dylan Garand essentially getting there still, and you want to give him some more time, why not have Jonathan Quick play another season on the back end on a cheap deal? More than likely, he might take it if he doesn't retire. He grew up a Ranger fan. He was born in Connecticut, grew up idolizing Mike Richter, huge Ranger fan. So he's essentially living out his childhood dream. I can't speak for him too much, but I feel as if you tell him, hey, man, you want to play one more year, we'll give you this contract, why would he not take it? If he doesn't, that means he's going to retire, or he just wants more money. But I think it's just he'll might stick around on a cheaper deal. He got rewarded for it last season, and I don't see why he can't get rewarded for it this year. There's nobody in the pipeline, not to my knowledge, that's going to be the next heir apparent. I haven't watched enough of Hartford and Dylan Garand to really say that he can be a guy to step in. Maybe he does, but if he doesn't, you got Jonathan Quick, and he's proven time and again just these last season and a half that he's been a very steady force, and I think that's really contributing a lot to what the Rangers have had in terms of success so far.
And Garand, by the way, 7 games so far in the A, 5-1-1, 915 save percentage, 252 goals against, mostly because Hartford has opened the season with some struggles. So 252 goals against is more of a team thing, 915 save percentage, and he's looking good. That's a big increase from
Oh yeah,
last year.
absolutely.
So he's 22. I wouldn't be shocked if the Rangers give Quick one more year at around the same dollars. but I also wouldn't be surprised if they want to go a little cheaper and just go with Garand, assuming he's
Right.
ready.
Right.
And at some point, you just have to trust Jeff Malcolm. He learned under Allaire. He's the new goalie coach. He is continuing to work with Quick, and Quick is currently sporting the best save percentage in the NHL.
Right.
Obviously,
and if
games played matters, but
right, and if he qualified for it, he'd probably be statistically the best goaltender in the league.
Yep.
So,
all right, we got two.
Okay.
I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to jump over one and go to NHL salary cap increaser at relatively new, spelled NEU, on Blue Sky.
Okay.
In a 25-26 season with a $92 million cap, there were some real uncertainties regarding roster decisions with the upcoming cap crunch. How do reports of the cap being as high as $97 million next season? I must have missed something. I don't remember seeing that, but I'll trust it. How does a $97 million cap ceiling for next season affect the futures of players like Kakko, Miller, and potentially even somebody like Kreider? So I got cap wages open.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
As of right now, the Rangers with a do they have next year's cap commitments? They do not. So let me just do some quick math on this. You got 19.7 on defensemen. Let's call that 20, and then 45.9 on forwards. Let's call that 46. So a shade under 65. Shade under 66, million committed. Trouba is not going to be a Ranger next year. So that makes it 58 million. That leaves you roughly $39 million in cap space. 11.5 goes to Shesterkin. 39 minus 11 is 28. I'm doing this off the top of my head, guys, so if my math is off, bear with me. So that's 28 million left to replace Trouba and Lindgren. One of them will be Mancini. To extend Miller, probably at a $5.5 to $6 million range. Extend Zach Jones in the $2.5 to $3 million range. Backup goalie, seventh defenseman, about $2 million. Resign Kakko, who deserves it. Probably consider if he continues. Kakko and Cooley, if they continue this season, Kakko's getting $5 million and Cooley's probably getting $3 million.
That seems on par.
They'd be smart to give him a long-term deal right off the bat. Edstrom is up, but he's not going to get a big increase. And you got to replace Riley Smith probably with an entry-level contract. I mean, 28 minus Mancini entry level, 1 million. All these are going to be 1 million. Mancini entry level, a 13th forward. Well, Brzezinski's still there. Another winger on the fourth line. That's another million. Edstrom's probably around $1 million. An entry level to replace Smith is $1 million. And backup goalie, seventh defenseman. So that's $6 million in depth players and entry levels. You just got to re-sign. That's 28 minus 6 is 22. You get 5 for Kakko. Let's call it 5 for Cooley, giving him a long-term deal. That's 10. And then Miller gets 6. Jones gets 3. More than enough space. Even at 95 million, 92 million, 92.5, there's room to make it work. They won't have much room, but there's room to make it work.
Does this include getting rid of Trouba? I must have missed that. Okay.
Yes. Trouba's not going to be a Ranger next year, and neither is Ryan Lindgren.
Okay. So the question was, do they have, what do they do with the cap?
Do they have, the question is basically, how do the reports of the cap being as high as 97 million impact the future of guys like Kakko and Cooley, and potentially Kreider. Kreider's got another 2 years left on his deal after this one, so it doesn't really impact him.
No.
But I think it gives, if it goes to $97 million, and this is how I'll actually answer the question. Sorry for the brain dump before. I think it gives them the wiggle room to sign Kakko and Cooley long term. Cooley will avoid the bridge deal. Kakko will get the money he deserves. We already saw the bridge deal for Miller. Maybe Jones doesn't get a bridge deal either. It gives them that flexibility to potentially give longer term deals to players that they like and they see as part of the future.
So you probably already know what I'm going to say in terms of this, because we've been rumor mongering this on our own irresponsibly, as you like to say on the blog. So it looks as if they could make things work, just kind of keeping everybody around. The Rangers seem to be pretty good at keeping a lot of the core around for the most part. So this essentially leads into, if the Rangers, and I have to say if because I don't know their motivations, but if the cap is going to go up, whether it's incrementally or even at that number at 97 million, and you do sign Igor at the 11.5, in another year after this question is posing, Artemi Panarin's contract runs out. And obviously we know who becomes a free agent and will more than likely probably try to demand another big contract is Connor McDavid. So
and Jack Eichel
and Jack Eichel. So the Rangers essentially have to, obviously they're not going to sign both because that would essentially just decimate the rest of your cap. But you have to figure out whether or not they can fit one of those guys in there, and it looks like they can. And
they can make it work.
Yeah, they can, and that will be a positive sign. So hopefully it goes up, because I think the more you can spend in the NHL, the better. And financially, the NHL is probably in the best shape they've been in a very long time. And obviously, when you have a guy like a McDavid potentially in a New York market, I don't know how much of the league actually hates the Rangers to try and avoid that sort of possibility. But I think you want to have your top players play in big markets like that. Obviously, McDavid in Edmonton's doing pretty well. Obviously, you could thank Gretzky for that. And then you got Eichel in Vegas, Matthews in Toronto. So I think the Rangers are finally due for something like that. But I think when it comes to those other players, they'll fit in just fine, because none of those players are really due for a huge contract extension. Like Chris Kreider is going to be basically close to 40 by the time his contract ends. I forget how old he is. But he's definitely,
contract extensions are going to come from Kakko, Cooley, and Miller.
Yeah,
and
but
maybe Schneider. Maybe Schneider.
Yeah, but those aren't going to break the bank, though. I mean, I'm speaking in terms of like re-signing a player that you like right now with Igor, But the Igor contract will fit in perfectly. I'll also say this too. I think, and this is just a prediction, so I think they'll be fine even with the larger sort of contracts that they could give out to these guys. But I also think that depending on how willing he is to stay, I think Panarin stays on a cheaper deal. I think he likes New York that much, especially with the way that this team is heading in. So I think he would potentially take less to play with the Connor McDavid. And if that's the case, well, you got McDavid and Panarin. Well, I mean, you might as well just wrap it up at this point.
Okay, first off, cart before horse. Cart before horse, you shut your mouth.
All right. Well, geez, thanks for pouring water on everything, David. Goodness gracious.
Second, and I'm going to pour water on it even more. The contract that will prevent them from landing a McDavid and an Eichel and for those listening, this isn't one of those pipe dream scenarios. The Rangers are preparing for that year of free agency. We've seen it already. It's one of the main reasons why they did not give Ryan Lindgren that contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's a main reason why Panarin, well, maybe not so much Panarin, but a lot of other contracts end that year. It's the McDavid and Eichel factor. And the contract that will get in the way of that is not Igor. It's not Panarin re-signing. It's not Trocheck. It's not Kreider. It is Mika Zibanejad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have his his current contract breakdown. And I think even though he has a no move clause, Chris Drury has proven to be absolutely ruthless. His contract cannot be bought out. It is all bonuses. The Rangers save like $800,000 in cap space,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's all bonuses. So we're talking about after the 25-26 season. So the summer of 2026 is when Eichel and McDavid hit free agency. On July 1st, 2026, Mika Zibanejad gets paid a $7.5 million bonus. After that, he has 4 years left on his deal, a base salary every year of $1 million. $1 million throughout the season, and his signing bonuses drop to $6.75 million, $5.75 million, and $5.5 million, plus the $4 million over 4 seasons. That has value to teams. Getting cap hit for less dollars has value. Whether or not he waives his no move, we'll see. Whether or not he completely overhauls his game and becomes a very reliable shutdown center. Yeah, overpaid. We'll see. That's the contract that will prevent the Rangers from netting a McDavid or an Eichel. This also assumes the cap doesn't go to $97 million, and then based off of that, 105?
Which if it ever got to that point, that'd be great.
Yeah, if the cap hits triple digits, then the Rangers won't have a problem with Zibanejad's contract. We've just had 4 years of static cap ceilings that we kind of got PTSD on this.
Yeah, so hopefully we don't run into that. But yeah, thanks for pouring water on my pipe dream, David.
Sorry. Listen, I'm not pouring water on a pipe dream. We know for an absolute fact that the Rangers are preparing for that offseason. That is the transition period for the Rangers where the old core goes and they bring in the new core. They probably have a mediocre year or two before the next cup run. That's the transition period. They've been looking at that year for quite some time now. The way they structured a lot of those contracts, the Goodrow contract, the Nemeth contract, all these that they're now out from under, but they got out from under them sooner than they had anticipated.
Right.
The Trocheck contract also, by the way, goes from a no-move clause at the end of this season to a modified no-trade with a 2026 10-team no-trade list.
Well, they also signed him to basically a bargain, so I don't see that being an issue going forward.
No, I don't see it being an issue either, but if they need the cap space, he's probably more easily tradable than Zibanejad.
Right.
All right. One last question, also from Hope. I did this last because I want to end on a good note.
Okay.
Hot take from Hope, again at Dream of Hope on Blue Sky. If Hedl is healthy, I don't think the Rangers need to do much at the deadline. Some depth and maybe a better top 4 defenseman, a Marcus Pettersson, Jake Wallman, Brian Dumoulin, are her top 3. They'd be fine if the plan is to have Perreault sign after he's done playing in BC. I'm having trouble reading. Let me try this again because I'm struggling to read. Okay. Hot take. I don't think if Hedl is healthy, they need to do much at the deadline. Some depth and a better top 4 defenseman, Pettersson, Wallman, and Dumoulin are my top 3. Would be fine if the plan is to have Perreault sign after BC is done playing this season. Thoughts? I struggled because I saw BC and I thought you said meant because, and I'm like, that's not English. So I can't read. It's not that Hope isn't speaking English, it's that I can't read.
Way to go, David.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we covered this a little bit before a touch on it. I agree that assuming there are no major injuries, the Rangers don't need to do much. They don't need to bring in a Marchand. They don't need to sell the farm to bring in whatever. I think they need a Lindgren replacement. And I'm losing my voice now because I'm getting sick because obviously it's plague season at daycare. So bear with me on this. I think they trade Lindgren, and then they also acquire in a separate deal somebody like a Pedersen or a Dumoulin. I don't think Wallman will be on their radar. I think it'll be Pedersen or Dumoulin. And that's it. Maybe, and then they'll get a depth center. Somebody so that if Hedel winds up getting hurt or somebody else gets hurt, it's not Brodzinski going into the lineup. It's somebody
Right.
else.
Right.
So I
you would
agree. I
think
don't
what?
think Rangers need to do much.
No, I agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take. It's a great take, honestly, because it's pretty much the logic that everyone should honestly should really be applying to this team as constructed, because you know, it seems as if 3 out of the 4 lines are, like you said earlier, are really getting their bang for their buck, and they're playing very, 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 very well. And obviously, the Kreider's advantage at Smith line is also playing pretty well as well. So I think, like you said, they just need to reinforce a little bit on D. Usually, those are relatively inexpensive sort of trades. And if I had to think of a center that they could possibly get, maybe Sam Lafferty, which I know Suit was very keen on a couple years ago. He's still an effective center you can use as depth. Basically,
I
treat
like
him
that.
this. Yeah,
I like that.
treat him the same way they did with Chad Ruido last season, where he was your depth guy, which I don't understand why he didn't play in the playoffs to begin with, but that's neither here nor there. But obviously you want to play the guys that got you there, but they don't really have to do much, and they'll have a lot of cap to work with if they have to do something, so that'll give them a lot of wiggle room to potentially acquire. And if they ship out Lindgren, that's more room for them to work with at the deadline. I think, and I could be wrong, that they could have about, at least as currently constructed, about $3 million in cap space at the deadline. So if you somehow manage to get rid of Lindgren's number, that number inches to at least 4 or 5, if I'm correct, maybe more. Um, and I'm sure some team will take him off our hands. He's still relatively better than your 7th defenseman, so a team will take him on for leadership or whatever. My guess, he goes to Anaheim. That's just me. I feel like that's like built for him, following in the steps of Strome and Vetrano. But
Who, by the
no,
way, Vetrano is having a crap year.
yes, he is.
All
Yes,
the
he
people
is.
like, go get Vetrano. He's going to be signed next year. He's going to be great. We told you no. This is why. He's not that good. Sorry.
You're right. That was sort of like I don't want to say his performance was an anomaly, but he wasn't going to sustain that shooting percentage that he had. He ran into some pretty good luck, was able to get a decent deal out of it, and even at the start of that contract was still able to kind of pull a lot of that luck out again, but it kind of seems like the luck kind of ran out, and also the Ducks are just kind of mediocre, so that definitely doesn't help. Could he have been boosted on a team that's slightly better? Yeah, but again, this fan base tends to have a bit of nostalgia. I'm glad that it's kind of dying out a little bit when it comes to players who were previously here. I think the only one that I can recall actually coming back and even making somewhat of an impact is what Tyler Mott recently. And the only other player that I would have really have liked to have brought back in that grand scheme of things was Tarasenko. But no, they don't. Yeah, they don't have to do much. They're set up really well. I think this is the problem that I think a lot of people, and not hope, just people in general see. And this is a lot with a lot of sports too, is that when you're rooting for your own team, you see the faults of the player. And I'm guilty with this too. I'm not going to lie to you, because I get on Mika Zibanejad and
We're
Keandre
all
Miller.
guilty of this. Every
Right.
single one of us is guilty of this. We're human.
Right. And since we see more of our own team, we tend to focus on the flaws a little bit more. I'm sure there's like Bruins fans or like Ducks fans or insert trash team here that would be like, yeah, I would love to have a guy like Mika Zibanejad or Ryan Lindgren. It's like, you know what? Good. If you want him, take him. But or Keandre Miller. But these guys, they're all still really good players, and they're all still very effective. I feel as if we tend to kind of, as a fan base, just tend to kind of over glamorize things and kind of get blinded to the fact that the team that is currently constructed is really good. Now, whether or not they're going to make that extra leap into the playoffs, that's a combination of talent, skill, and dumb luck. So even your best teams, it's very rare that your President's Trophy winning team actually ends up winning the cup. So you just have to essentially get hot at the right time or get the right play at the right time. And from last year's playoffs, you saw how delicate that line was, because if you really look at the Rangers-Panthers series, granted, the Panthers were a little bit more heavy down into the corners, but that series could have gone either way if a couple of bounces had gone to the Rangers into the back of the net. So that just shows how delicate that line is. But this team is still presently constructed, still one of the best teams in the NHL, and Hope is right. You don't really have to make many adjustments. And look, in terms of Perreault, is he a senior? I'm assuming this is his last year in BC. I'm assuming,
He's
right?
a sophomore.
A sophomore. Oh, so
hold up. Not only hold on, let me pull up his numbers because I looked at them before.
Oh no, it's crazy. He's absolutely killing it. Like I can recall
it's
that.
not just this year; it's last year too.
Right.
Year, 36 games, 19 goals, 41 assists. In 36 games, he almost put up 2 points a game.
It's ridiculous.
He's
That's
actually
absurd.
taken a step back this year. 10 games, 6 goals, 10
Wasn't
assists.
he injured for a little bit? Didn't he not play in a couple of games?
I think
so.
Othman.
Maybe, but
Othman hurt his wrist and he's out until the holidays.
Yikes. Well, I mean, he's another conversation for another day. But yeah, and I'll wrap up with this because I know we have to get going. But yeah, and if let's say you want to, if Perreault ends up, okay, one more thing. This is probably a stupid question, but could he sign his entry level deal and still play in college?
He's on. No. He can't play in college. He can play in the NHL. He can play in the playoffs this year if he signs his entry level deal. The Rangers did the same thing with Kreider.
But Kreider, right? That's what I was using that baseline for. Okay, because I figured you're going to sign your entry level contract and go back to college. You can't do that. I just wanted to make sure I was correct on that. But listen, if he wants to make the leap, hang around the guys for the playoffs, and then play in Hartford next season, why not? If he's going to keep putting up those type of numbers. But I personally think that he should just kind of, play his college years out and then head here once that's done. But maybe depending on how well he plays and the performances that he puts towards the end of the season, he could probably be here sooner than later. Don't want to rush it, but if he ends up coming here, put him in Hartford, let him hang around the guys for a little bit in the playoffs, let him experience it, let him soak all, the New York experience in, and I think it'd be good for him. So yeah, just to touch on Hope's question finally is, no, they don't need a lot of adjustments. This team is still very good as constructed. They're elite in more ways than one on the back end and up front. So, she's definitely got it. It's not a hot take. I agree with it.
One minor quibble. If they're signing Perreault just to play in Hartford, they don't need to do that. They can just give him an amateur tryout.
Right.
Yeah, they can do that. The point of signing him to his entry-level contract is for him to play in the playoffs.
It's to play in the NHL, right? Okay. Yeah. I know there's a lot of technicalities when it comes to the cap.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and I can't keep up with the new CBA anymore.
Yeah, I have to take some time out and actually check it out again because I know this thing that changes fluidly. But I'm guessing those are all the questions that we have.
Those are all the questions. Any final thoughts?
The team is good, man. Like, Rangers are good. Enjoy it. We've got a good team on our hands. It's the regular season. It's November, but we're getting close to that point of the line of demarcation of the team putting up performances at Black Friday, and it just kind of seems like they're on an upward trend. So obviously my tone of voice seems a bit facetious, but I'm doing that just for comedic effect. But no, this team is good, guys. Watch and read our stuff and listen to our stuff. Yeah. We like it. So yeah.
Speaking of read our stuff, if you did not see the post today on the site, if you did not see what I put out on Twitter a couple weeks ago, we are no longer, well, not we, I am no longer on Twitter. I am on Blue Sky only. I only have my Twitter account so that nobody goes around masquerading as me. I also put together a nice starter pack for the rest of the writers here at the site. Go follow everybody. I believe only me and Rob are 100% Blue Sky only. I think Becky too, actually. Everybody else kind of goes back and forth, but Blue Sky is where we are. And if you're looking for social media content, that is where you'll find it. I do appreciate everybody dealing with my personal decision to move off of Twitter. It was not something easy to leave 11,000 followers behind, but it was something that I had to do, just the way the algorithm had changed. I'm getting more interaction with 1,000 followers on Blue Sky on a Rangers tweet than I did with 11,000 followers on Twitter. That's a product of how the site has turned into a bot farm, and how the new algorithm that Elmo has put in there has changed a lot of things and censored a lot of people. And as a life lesson, if somebody is screaming from the rooftops about something that you know is not true, it means they're the ones doing it.
Yeah.
Don't gaslit.
Pretty much.
If somebody is screaming that their mortal enemy is doing something, guaranteeing you 99% of the time, the person making the accusation is the one doing those things. Thou dost protest too much.
He who smelt it dealt it.
You had to end with that. You had to end with that. I had a nice proverb. I had a nice proverb, and you go with that.
David, come on. I couldn't help it. But he is right though. And I'll just say this quickly about Blue Sky. I'm still on Twitter. I refuse to call it X because I think that is the stupidest name ever. But I'm still on Twitter, so you can find me there. But I'm also active on Blue Sky as well because I have a lot of time to put things on duplicate profiles. So you can find me there. But Blue Sky, come join us. I still tweet and write dumb stuff. So if you want to see dumb stuff about my crappy sports teams and the Rangers, then by all means.
Make sure you guys follow that starter pack. Obviously, JL is included in there, as is everybody else that writes for the site. I think we're at 11 or 12 writers at this point. We have the best staff here in Rangers hockey. I fully believe that I believe we put out the best content. We put out the best articles. Obviously, I'm biased, but yeah, join us on Blue Sky. It's fun.
Yes, it is. All right, so I think that's it, right?
Yep, we are all good.
All right, so with that being said, obviously Rob had to unfortunately leave prematurely, but all the best to him. Thank you, Dave, again. And we'll catch you guys next week before the Thanksgiving holiday on Live from the Blue Seats. So everybody, you all be well, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.